11-year-old Henry-Ellis Pritchard sat quietly between his parents in a hired open-top carriage as they traveled down Main Street in Brownsville, Texas. He was dressed in his Sunday best, from his blue four-in-hand tie, his suit coat and knickers with their knee-high stockings, to his brand-new lace-up ankle-high shoes. His light brown hair, slicked back when the journey began, was now blowing gently in the Gulf breeze. His ever-present smile shone bright as always, just as his mother had taught him to do at all times. Sitting across from the family was a well-dressed Mexican gentleman, a security officer employed by the man they were going to visit. The security officer's name was Jose Rocafuerte, and he would smile at Henry-Ellis every so often. Henry-Ellis studied the man. In Austin, where he came from, one seldom saw a Mexican anymore. But here in Brownsville, directly across the river from Matamoros, a thriving Mexican city of its own, they were plentiful. He'd seen a few Mexicans during his visits to his grandfather's the previous summer, when he stayed with them on his old ranch in Juanita, Texas. But Juanita was much closer to the international border than Austin. Jose Rocafuerte wore a large sombrero, not one of those with a very high crown and extremely wide brim that Henry-Ellis had seen in one of his history books, but a much tamer version, made from beaver pelts as most American-made hats were constructed. His once black, now going to white mustache had been trimmed neatly above his upper lip, and he wore his sideburns and hair, also white, quite long, to cover some smallpox scarring he had on his neck and both cheeks. Henry-Ellis knew that was what it was because he'd seen the same scars on several of his classmates back in Austin. Betty Jean, the boy's mother, held a bouquet of long-stem roses in her lap. "I am glad you are enjoying the flowers, Mrs. Pritchard," said Fuerte. "They were gathered from the personal gardens of Don Roberto." Henry-Ellis watched as Fuerte spoke, the man's eyes shifting from one direction to another, always on the alert for trouble. At the same time, the boy listened to the sounds of the border city, especially those made by the hooves of the two-horse-matching team that pulled the carriage. The Mexican driver was taking them to the border bridge crossing at the far end of the well-traversed cobblestone boulevard. Other carriages, buggies, and freight wagons, plus men of all dress on horseback, packed the wide thoroughfare, moving in both directions as the carriage made its way toward the gated international boundary. "Now, son," said the boy's father, Kent, "I know you've been to Mexico with me several times before, and I know you've always enjoyed those outings we've had together below the border. I just want to remind you again that this trip isn't going to be just like it was on those other occasions. This visit is primarily for business reasons, though there will be a social side to it. As you already know," he went on, "our family has been selected by my company to be the guests of Don Roberto Acosta y Castro, the owner of one of the major trading firms with which we do business. The Don is also a younger brother to the commanding general of the Mexican Army. We will be staying at the Don's hacienda on his rancho on the other side of Matamoros, Brownsville's sister city across the Rio Grande. Senor Fuerte has been assigned to accompany us for our protection. There are some people in Mexico we've recently discovered who would do us harm just because I work for a company that does business with Don Roberto." The boy looked again at the security man sitting across from him. "Does the Don keep any horses on his rancho?" the boy asked. "The Don?" said Fuerte. "I am sure that he does, see." "Now don't you let me catch you begging Don Roberto for a horseback ride, young man," said his mother, Betty Jean, "or anything else. If you do, I'll paddle your little butt so hard you won't be able to sit down for all the time we're in Mexico, plus what it takes for us to get back home to Austin."